question one is, in your lifetime from sort of the 60s to date, how much has technology and our interaction with it changed?
We hope you enjoy the show. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Forget what they tell you you are and awaken to who you really are. Consciousness. No body, no form, just a state of being aware. You know, when you're born into the world, you tend to think the world is what you're born into. So when I was born in 1952, it was a very different world to this one, utterly different. There's an organization in Spain of scientific research called La Quinta Columna. They were right in there at the start identifying graphene oxide in the vials. But others have done it around the world now as well. And this is something that kind of emerged quite early on after the fake vaccines were rolled out. And what La Quinta Columna did is they got hold of one of the vials, and possibly more than one, but at least one in this case. And if you remember, the COVID fake vaccines have to be kept at a very, very low temperature. In some cases, colder than Antarctica. What? So what they did is they put the content of the vial in an incubator at body temperature. And as they did this, when it started out, what they saw was basically sort of clear. And then it started. And more of these fantastic structures started to appear and grow and self-replicate the longer the vial was in the incubator at body temperature. And you see these other studies around the world where they found this self-replicating nano technology, these structures, in the blood. I've seen it shown to me. And so these are the structures. And there's other reasons for it, because they're completely changing the nature of the human body. That's what they're doing. They're moving towards the no gender human. All this transgender stuff, as I've said many times before, is just the stepping stone, the totalitarian tiptoe towards not the transgender human, the no-gender human, where procreation, as described by Aldous Huxley in Brave New World in 1932, and there's a reason why he would have known, technology he talked about in that book is now coming online, like artificial wombs and stuff. The plan is that the human species will be eventually technologically created and be a no procreating human. This is why one of the most expanding of scientific disciplines is called synthetic biology, or synbio. This is what is happening. They're moving towards a much more synthetic human. So all these transgender activists who think they're getting what they want, they're only getting what they want because it's a stepping stone towards what the cult wants and what this non-human force wants, which is a transformed human form. But in terms of what we're talking about with the hive mind, these structures are designed to be the interface, the receiver of the information coming through the cloud to humans. Ultimately, from a central point, as I mentioned earlier, dictating human thought and emotional response. Of course, what will it do? It will make people docile, it will make people submissive, it will make people see the world in the way that suits the cult. And it's all unfolding in plain sight before our eyes. But so few people can see it. And then we ask a question: what is AI? That's a question I don't hear asked almost never. What is AI? Okay, it's algorithms, that's on one level, yeah, where you can decide what's boosted and what isn't on Twitter X or whatever. And there's what they call learning AI, where a form of technological AI is bombarded constantly with all the stuff that is posted on the internet, what's posted on social media, what's posted everywhere. That's all fed into this learning AI. And by now, probably well past by now, AI knows more about humans and what makes them tick. And if you press button A, what reaction you'll get, than humans ever do. So there's that level of it too. But there's another level of AI, and that's the one they want to connect the hive mind to, and that is this very non-human force operating in the lower levels of the astral dimension, which is described by religions and by native cultures and shamans going way back all over the world. Whether it's the Christian Satan, devil, demons, or the Islamic Shaitan, Iblis, Jinn, or the Gnostic Yoda Baoth, Demiurge, archons, Greek for rulers, you see it everywhere, this same recurring theme. This is what they're describing. This is this force that's working through this global cult to impose its will upon humanity. And that's where this technology is coming from. So at that level of AI, it's the mind of that which is controlling us and manipulating us. That's what that level of AI is. And so if you have this hive mind connected through the self-replicating technology, we as humans become expressions of that astral, malevolent, deeply malevolent consciousness. And what it thinks, humans are planned to think, as a matter of course, because one is an expression of the other. This is the deep in the rabbit hole stuff that almost no one's talking about. But if we don't understand it, and we don't know about it, then it just goes about its business unchallenged. So, back to Elon Musk. There's two approaches that are happening to sell this hive mind nonsense to the human race. On one side, you've got, I'll call it the hard sell. The hard sell from people like Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, Ray Kurzweil, and all these others, is that we must be fused with artificial intelligence. We must be connected to artificial intelligence, because then we'll be gods. We'll be gods. We'll be godlike, in the words of Ray Kurzweil.
So what happens to entities as they evolve? First through biological evolution, and I've said that technological evolution is just a continuation of biological evolution. It actually is a very smooth transition in terms of the acceleration of paradigm shift rates. Well, they become more intelligent. We became more capable of higher level emotions, so we became more loving, we became more creative, we became more beautiful, and so we're actually moving exponentially to have greater levels of the very properties we ascribe to God without limit. Now, we never become literally infinite, but we're moving exponentially in that direction, so we become more godlike.
And a lot of the so-called left in politics, which is not the left I knew when I grew up in, it's called woke now, which is not anything like what I knew growing up in Leicester, England in the 60s and the 50s. That is pretty much a pushover for this. Oh, we'll be gods, look, I won't have to scroll anymore. I will have this augmented reality. I'll be able to do it, be in front of my eyes, and all this stuff. Or even I'll be able to download my consciousness into the metaverse. Yeah, won't even need a body. That'd be great. But on the other side in quotes, you've got a very, very large number of people in America, I mean tens and tens of millions and more, and around the world, that don't want this stuff. They don't want what I'm describing. Why would they? Anyone with half a brain cell on active duty would never want this. Of course they wouldn't. So you need a different approach for them. And what you have to do is persuade them to go down the same road for a different reason. Enter Elon Musk. So he's been, as all these companies, which are all pushing this cult agenda in its different ways. One of them is Neuralink. Now, Neuralink has got a lot of publicity, obviously, because he's connecting the human brain to, well, artificial intelligence, computers, and so on. But it's the Stone Age. One of the great things, or great contributions, that Elon Musk makes to this whole agenda is he sells a concept. He's not necessarily cutting edge. A lot of what he does is not. But he's selling a concept. In this case, he's selling the concept of AI computers connected to the human brain. And What they do with Neuralink currently is they take a little bit of the skull out and they put these electric probes, wires in to the brain. And I saw him do an interview in which the interviewer asked him the obvious question. He said, well, it's all right, you know, taking a bit of the skull away and all that stuff, but how many people are going to want that done to them? Oh, he said, you might not need to. You might be able to go in via the veins. You mean like the COVID fake vaccine? Exactly. So he's selling a concept. This is way back off the cutting edge, while the real cutting edge is happening all around us. And so Elon Musk is selling the soft cell. How? What he's said years ago now, you remember, is artificial intelligence could be the end of humanity. Okay. So, Mr. Musk, little question. Why have you gone on rolling out and promoting AI ever since? But what he's saying is this. See, what the hard sell is saying is we must be connected to artificial intelligence because we'll be gods. That's the outcome. And we won't. We'll be slaves on a level that's never been seen in known human history. What Musk is saying is, well, look, AI fusing with humans is inevitable, or AI taking over is inevitable. Well, it's not, because it's been advanced by human decisions. The Federal Communications Commission, the FCC in America, did not have to give Musk and SpaceX permission for tens of thousands and more all the time low orbit satellites. And by the way, how can an agency in America give permission for something that affects the entire globe? Where are all the other countries kicking off about this? They're not. Because at the core, at the controlling core, they're all on the same bloody side, basically. So they're not kicking off about this. And so you have Musk, who's saying that AI could be the end of humanity, but what he's saying is that to stop humans dying out by the higher intelligence of artificial intelligence, then humans must fuse with AI to save us. So what are the two outcomes here? They've got the hard sell outcome, humans fuse with AI, which takes over the human brain, the human thinking, human perception. And the Musk, we must save humanity outcome is humans fuse with AI, controlling their perceptions. But you see the difference in the way it's being sold. One, we'll be gods. One, we must save humanity, and we haven't got any choice, basically. But the same outcome, because they're all on the same team.
And you called it a neural lace?
Neural lace, yeah.
It's totally not Google Glass, right?
No, I'm talking about
No, but
something
it's
which...
like you wear it? Or you...
No, I mean, it would be... I mean, there are a few ways to approach this, but some sort of interface directly with your cortical neurons particularly.
But doesn't that imply surgical insertion?
Not necessarily. You could go through the veins and arteries because that provides a complete roadway to all of your neurons. Your neurons are very heavy users of energy, so they need high blood flow. So you automatically, with your veins and arteries, have a road network to your neurons.
Elon Musk has been given basically a free ride to do all this by a hijacked alternative media after the COVID hoax, when lots of people who'd bought the COVID hoax came out of the mainstream and became the stars of the alternative media and took it over because they got all the algorithmic support, all the financial support, all the promotion. And they eulogize Musk. Therefore, he goes on his merry way, advancing the very hive mind agenda I'm talking about, without pushback from that hijacked mainstream of the alternative media. The pushback comes from those who are excluded from that. Another interesting point about Musk and his financial support, when you play it out against the alleged image of he's against the system, he's pushing back on the system, he's a free speech man, he is. Well, not only is NASA and the Pentagon funding his SpaceX, and they're putting up all these satellites, and you've got Starlink and all that stuff being done by SpaceX. The Pentagon and government are paying him, they've given him the contract to produce, I think they call it Star Shield. It's a version of Starlink, the satellite system, that allows communication specifically for the military and government agencies. So everywhere you look, the fraudulence of the Musk image against the Musk reality is again on public display. Now, this fusion of AI with humans is being prepared, perceptually prepared, in many and various ways. So let's just go back briefly to this transgender agenda, with the real aim being the no gender human. If you're moving towards the no gender human, you can't just do that overnight. Of course, you need to perceptually prepare people for it so it becomes just accepted without too much pushback. So if you're going to fuse gender into the no gender human, first on the road to that, you have to confuse gender. And this is why young people from the youngest age now are having their perception of gender completely mesmerized and bewildered and befuddled and completely distorted and mixed up. So now they talk about anything between 70 and 100 different genders. Absolute bloody nonsense. Intelligent life calling planet Earth. But you've got to confuse gender on the road to fusing it. That's what's happening. And there's a reason why they are targeting the young specifically. You know, when you're born into the world, you tend to think the world is what you're born into. So when I was born in 1952, it was a very different world to this one, utterly different. And that was the world that I thought was the world. And then I've watched it change, transform, completely now. And I've had that radar, that perspective of lengthy experience that's allowed me to see that. Whereas if you're born into the world now, this technological, AI-controlled world, it's the normal to you. This is the world. You haven't got that perspective to see how it's changed, because it hasn't changed for you. It is what it is. And so there's two things going on, you see. One is they're targeting the young because of that. They're starting basically with a blank sheet of paper, with the world as it already is, the point we've reached on this journey. And they are going to be the adults when you want to bring this in full whack. So they're the ones you're after. You're after the young. So why are you targeting them with the technology and all the perceptual manipulation that goes on? All the social media stuff. It's all targeting the young. And that's also why they want rid of old people. You know, the COVID period, not just through the jab, but through other things that happened during COVID, like the midazolam scandal, the end-of-life drug, the combination of midazolam and morphine that killed tens of thousands of old people in care homes alone in Britain during COVID, when their loved ones were kept away because, oh no, you can't come in the care home, it's COVID. Tens of thousands were killed this way, systematically. And it was called the first wave of COVID, if you remember. And old people are being targeted in many and various ways because they want rid of them. They want rid, I mean, they say, you know, there's no fool like an old fool. That's true. If you have lived all those years and learnt nothing about the world you're in, then it's bloody foolish. But there's a lot of old people who do have that perspective, who do have that intelligence that can see it, because it's not like it was. And they want rid of them. They want rid of that perspective. So all they have left are those that were born into this world, and this is their normal. And another way of this fusion between AI and humans, perceptually, is to produce technology that causes humans to interact with AI as if AI is human, right? This is all part of it. So we're going to see laws eventually protecting robots and what have you. I mean, this is coming. Protecting machines. Because we're going to say, oh, well, they're conscious, really. You've got to have laws to stop them, this happening or that happening. But the point is, if you look at these Alexas or whatever they bloody call them, and all these other devices, you look at these chat GPT systems, which are all over the internet now, like, you know, AI could be the end of humanity, Elon Musk's Grok on Twitter X. You go on the internet, and now you're getting your information, if you fall for it, from AI sources. And then you're saying, oh, Alexa, play me this record, play me that record. What's the weather going to be like today, Alexa? And it will reply to you. Every generation of cars is getting closer and closer to autonomous, run by a computer, AI. The fusion is going on all around us. And if you don't have this perspective of age or intelligence, if you're young, real intelligence, observed intelligence, then you're not going to see how it's happening. But this is what's going on. The fusion between AI and humans is not just technological, it's psychological. And this interaction between AI and humans, as if AI is human, is crucially part of this whole preparation that's going on. You've got dolls now for little kids connected to the internet. Why? Preparing them for the fusion with AI, as if AI is human.
So mostly effectively merging in a symbiotic way with digital intelligence revolves around eliminating the I/O constraint. So it'd be some sort of direct cortical interface.
There is far more to this technological dystopia than even just the fusion of AI with humans. It's to create an AI-controlled world in which AI will literally control everything. And to do that, you've got to make everything electronic, electromagnetic. And this is why they have created the internet, which DARPA, the technological development arm of the Pentagon, claims credit for doing, so that everything in terms of communication and so much more I'm going to come to is moved onto the internet, becomes electronic. Because then, through your AI algorithms, you can decide what is allowed to be seen and what isn't. And I said a long time ago, decades ago, that the plan was eventually that no one will see or hear anything that isn't sanctioned by authority.
Access denied.
Now, in the days that I remember, when things were done on paper and not overwhelmingly done electronically, and they want the end of anything to do with paper, you had different points of information source that had some form of independence. You know, when I started out talking about this information 35 years ago, and for many years after, you weren't doing it via the internet in the way that happens now. If you were doing a meeting, like a public meeting, you'd stand in the street handing out leaflets. That's how fast and how phenomenally, monumentally this world has transformed. And the idea was to get everything on the internet so it could be algorithmically controlled and even, you know, switched off, the so-called kill switch, if they wanted to, so there was no communication at all. And they seed funded certain companies that did not have to watch the bottom line as a result. And what emerged was your Facebooks and your Googles and your Amazons. And eventually YouTube was bought by Google. And they didn't have to look at the bottom line because they were getting funding from all over the place. So what they could do was expand and expand and expand without having to make profit, and they could buy up the opposition if necessary. And the idea was, in the early days of the internet, was to allow the free flow of information, because they had to. You're not going to get people out of the paper communication world and what have you, and put it all on the internet. Basically, we're heading that way. If you had censorship from the start. But once these companies like Facebook, etc., reached a point of near monopoly, then the censorship started, because thought they could get away with it, and so it's proved. And if you look at Amazon, Amazon did not have to make a profit for a very, very long time. And now it's basically the global marketplace for so many people. And they started with books, if you remember. They started being the global internet center for book sales and increasingly book production. And what this did on purpose was destroy independent publishers and independent bookshops. And the idea eventually, and we're not far from there now, it's already beginning to happen, is that eventually on the road to this, you will not see or hear anything that does not, is not sanctioned by authority. You're going to see them starting to say, we're not going to sell this book anymore, or that book anymore, or that book anymore, or this book anymore. That's the whole idea. It's to create this stealth, step-by-step monopoly on information. Any information that in the end would be challenging the information coming direct to your perceptions from AI. So that's all you're going to hear. All that's going to be gone. That's the plan. And more than that, I said so long ago now, decades ago, if you want to see what's planned for the West tomorrow, look at China today. And it's my view, has been for a long time, that the Mao Revolution in China was a cult revolution. Ultimately, it was an astral revolution. And it was designed for this reason, to create a closed society, which China was for a very, very long time and still is to a large extent. And within that closed society, to incubate and develop in the end, technological control system where they now have millions of cameras in their cities, tracking people in real time. I've seen documentaries where they've sent someone out in the street and seen how quickly they can be tracked and found by the camera system. And it's been minutes. And so what you have in China, in this incubated mass control system, is the blueprint for global society. And what a surprise, what a shock that COVID, the non-existent COVID, by the way, see my books, supposedly came out of China. It was a fish market according to some, or it was a Wuhan lab leak, according to others. Neither. There never was a COVID. When it came out of China officially, and the whole COVID thing unfolded around the world, all orchestrated. That's why everyone was basically doing the same thing, virtually, in terms of government's reaction, medical reaction. What did the West start to become like very quickly? China. And in China, they have what's called the social credit system. And if you do and behave as the government wants you to, you get credits. If you behave or have thoughts that don't suit the government, then you have credits taken away. And if you have enough taken away, you can't go on a train, you can't go on a plane, you can't operate within mainstream society. And what we're now seeing in this process of the incubated, perfected Chinese system going westwards, not only westwards either, all over the world, is exactly the same system unfolding. So what they want, and it's again happening in plain sight if people would only look, is to isolate people in what they call 15-minute cities. Actually, they're 15-minute communities. And everything that you need, according to the authorities, will be within a 15-minute walk or cycle ride from your home. And this is being prepared for in so many ways. In London, we have this fascist system of ULEZ, ultra-low emission zones, that have been imposed across the whole of London now, right out from the centre, by this Labour Party mayor called Sadiq Khan, who I wouldn't trust to tell me the time in a room full of clocks. I'd have to check every clock. And to police this ULEZ zone, which basically means if you have a vehicle that has a certain emission level that's not within the criteria of the zone, then you have to pay Sadiq Khan's operation £12.50 a day just to drive your vehicle off your drive or down the street. And so to police this, they've put number plate cameras all over London, so that if you go past one of them and you've got a vehicle, oh no, not the right emissions, you're going to get fined. And what are they really there for? To police the ULEZ zone? Well, in the short term, yes. But what about the long term? Because one of the things that you learn when you research this global cult is that when something is introduced, it's never for the reason initially it is said to be introduced for. There's a long-term plan for this. For instance, just a quick aside, but very relevant, the Office of Communications called Ofcom in Britain, which is the government censor, was created by Tony Blair when he was Prime Minister. Ofcom has been given more powers. First of all, it was to oversee and basically censor the broadcast media, mainstream media. Now, through something called the Online Safety Bill, it's been given powers to police the internet. And now we have the gopher of Tony Blair, Keir Starmer, as Prime Minister of Britain, all these years later, and he's going to use Ofcom to massively censor what people can say and not say on the internet. So he would have known, Blair, here, that was the outcome this was going to have eventually. This is how it works. They don't plan for tomorrow afternoon. That's why you have to do the research to understand and to uncover these things, because there can be a long distance between something being created, something being done, and the real outcome becoming clear. So if we go back to the ULEZ cameras, they're there initially to police the ULEZ zone, get all this money, destroy people's livelihoods who can't afford more modern vehicles, take people out of their vehicles altogether, which is the plan. But eventually, those number plate cameras and others are designed to police the 15-minute cities, because eventually the idea is you won't be allowed to leave. Now, I know if they do this, everybody refuses to pay the fine, right? That'll stop them. This is why they want to bring in the digital currencies, starting with the central bank digital currencies. Because the idea is, as we're seeing in China, that through this digital system, when you pass the camera policing the 15-minute city, your fine will be removed from your digital bank account within seconds. The idea is that every aspect of your life will be controlled by artificial intelligence. Look around now. Look around and see how much artificial intelligence is dictating your reality and what you can and cannot do. Do you remember, well, I do because I'm old. I know I don't look it, you don't have to say so, but I am. I remember when there was no tapes, not even AI, no tapes being played when you called a company. What happened is you called a company and you spoke to a human being. Hello, how can I help you? Well, this is my problem. And what they could do, because they were human, is react to your specific problem. Now what you do, well, first of all, what started to happen then is you'd hear a tape. I remember my father, quick story. When tapes first came in, my father, he was born in 1907, so he wasn't used to any of this stuff any more than I am, really. I'm more used to it than he was. He rang this company when they first brought the tapes in, and I could hear him in the hall, and he was going, "Yep, oh, okay, yeah, thank you, thank you." And he came back in the front room, and I said to him, "Who have you been talking to?" He said, "I was ringing so-and-so." He says, he said, there's no one there at the moment. Could we call back later? And I said, "You were talking to a tape, Dad. You were talking to a bloody tape." This is how new it was, because we'd never seen it before. And now you call a company, and what happens? AI tells you, an AI voice tells you all your options. And at the end of all the options, you may talk to a human being, but you can forget that. That's not how it's meant to be eventually. It's meant to be you don't even talk to a human being. And, this famous comedy series in Britain years ago now, where one of the lines was, "Computer says no, computer says no, I'd like to do this, no, computer says no." This, not very bright, unhelpful receptionist. Computer says no. that is the world that we are so fast entering, where if the AI computer system doesn't want you to do something, you won't do it.
Access denied.
So we have to decide, while we still can, just if we're going to continue down this road, or whether en masse we're going to refuse to accept it and refuse to cooperate with it. Because this is now moving so quickly, because the totalitarian tiptoe has become the totalitarian sprint.
Right, we are at the verge of AI. OpenAI. Altman has said now that he thinks 2025 will be the year that AI becomes sentient, whatever that means. Artificial general intelligence will emerge.
And it's doing so because the momentum of control is allowing more control to happen quicker.
I've said publicly, and I'm kind of half joking, that we need AI government.
Yeah.
It sounds crazy to say, but instead of having this like alpha chimpanzee that runs the tribe of humans, how about we have some like really logical, fact-based, program that makes it like really reasonable and equitable in a way that we can all agree to.
The more you centralize power, the more power you have at the center to centralize even quicker. And that's why the speed of centralization, the speed of dystopia, has got faster and faster and faster. And we have decisions to make, because if we don't make any and we just go on as we are, then what I've been describing in this documentary series will happen. It is happening all around us. And I'm 72 now as I speak, and I'm going to be around a while. I won't give them the satisfaction of not being. But look at the kids today. Look at them. Look at your kids. Look at your grandkids. What kind of world are they going to live in, given where we are already? 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 Given where we are.
But the constraint is input output. So we're I/O bound.
Restarting.
It seems hopeless, doesn't it? But is it? One of the things I want to get across and emphasize massively is that we are not controlled by an omnipotent force of extraordinary intelligence. We are controlled by a bunch of prats, by a bunch of morons. Morons in this sense: if you want to control people in the way that this mentality does, you are a moron. That doesn't mean that in every area you are stupid in terms of cleverness. I've said long time ago now, back in the 90s, cleverness without wisdom is the most destructive force on earth. And we look around the world and we are looking at the result of cleverness without wisdom. It's It's very clever to make an atomic bomb. It's not wise to drop it. And that's the difference. This force that is manipulating human society, for reasons I talk about in the books at length, there is a reason why this is all happening. It's not a force of wisdom. It's a force of stupidity, but it is very clever in particularly one area, manipulating human perception and predicting, not least through use of AI now, that if you provide stimulus A, you will get human reaction B. But it's not a high expanded consciousness, because it wouldn't do what it's doing if it was. Humans, by contrast, at least many of them, do have the capacity for expanded levels of consciousness. This force, this astral force, knows that, and what it's setting out to do, and what basically is the foundation of everything it does, is to stop humans accessing that expanded consciousness that is the true I. They want us to identify with, actually, the name of one of my books. They want us to identify with the phantom self. They want us to identify with the labels of a human life. Man, woman, race, religion, income bracket, sexuality. They are not who we are. They are what we are experiencing. But what this manipulation of perception wants us to do is to self-identify with what we are experiencing as who we are, and who we are to be forgotten about and not influenced in terms of our behavior, our perception, our self-identity. Look at religions, right? Not all of them, but what are major ones telling you? That if you say, I am an expression of what they call God, then you are a blasphemer. How can you say that you are an expression of God? God is up there, we're down here. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed? We're always down here. I saw Russell Brand on a stage with Tucker Carlson in America, right-wing political stage. Get on his knees at the end and do a prayer. What are you doing on your knees for? Oh, well, because we're down here and God's up there with Jesus. We're always on our knees. Have you noticed that? On your knees to authority, on your knees to the boss, on your knees to your religious hero. You must bow. Sorry, got a bad back. Not for me. So, how do we get off our knees? We stop identifying with the frickin' knees. We stop identifying with the human body, which is just a vehicle to experience this reality, briefly. What we do is realize that we are the consciousness potentially all consciousness, having the experience through that body. And that we, if we can expand our awareness to tap into those levels that this controlling force cannot tap into, which is why it does what it does, then we can start to tap in to the insight, the knowledge, the awareness, the energetic power to dictate our own reality instead of through acquiescence and ignorance allowing this monumentally stupid bunch of prats to tell us what our reality is and what we should believe. Religion is the greatest form of mind control ever invented. So is politics. Put it aside. Forget what they tell you you are and awaken to who you really are. Consciousness. No body, no form, just a state of being aware. Identify with that. And as you self-identify with it, by that expansion of your self-identity, you will expand as a matter of course, deeper and deeper and deeper into this infinite flow of consciousness that goes way beyond this manipulated world. And suddenly you will see what you couldn't see before. That is true awakening. You will expand as a matter of course deeper and deeper and deeper into this infinite flow of consciousness that goes way beyond this manipulated world. And suddenly you will see what you couldn't see before. And if you look at society, it's focusing your attention on two self-identities, basically. That you are just a human that come from some form of cosmic accident and will then disappear and cease to be, or you are subordinate to some judgmental God, i.e. this force manipulating us. If you look at those two options that people have, subordinate to a God, that's a jealous God, in the Old Testament, a bloodthirsty God, or you're just a cosmic accident. They're both keeping you in the box. This is where the answers lie. It's a reevaluation of self-identity, to see not only who we really are, but who we have been all this period of known human history, when throughout the few have controlled the many. Throughout. If you're looking for a theme of human history, above all other themes, it is that the few have always controlled the many. Why? How can a relative handful control 8 billion people currently? Because the 8 billion have given their perceptions, their mind, away to the few. People want answers. That's it. Be what you really are and put aside what they tell you you are. And collectively, this house of cards will come down, because it is a house of cards and it's being held together by billions and billions of people who are expressions of infinite awareness, who think they're Bill and Joe and Abdul. That's not who we are. That's what we're experiencing. It's time to reevaluate self-identity and to live it. Because expanded awareness in its pomp and its knowledge of itself will never be subordinate, fearful, intimidated by authority. For it knows that it is eternal, and whatever happens here is just a brief moment, so brief it's almost infinitesimal, that we call a human life. So we're going to do this. If you do that, we'll do that, and we'll do that, we'll do it then. Because I am eternal awareness, having a brief experience. I've remembered, you prats have forgotten. That's why you do the bidding of the masters of human society. We're the real masters. It's time to remember.
Game over.
Capturing